Breaking news. Afghanistan President Ghani fled with cars and a helicopter full of cash, claims by Russia. Afghanistan president has fled, and in an official, statement released, the fleeing officials could not load all the money in the cars and helicopter and left some behind lying on the tarmac. Afghanistan's president vows to prevent achievements of last 20 years going to waste. Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani reportedly fled the country with 4 cars and a helicopter full of cash and had to leave some money on the tarmac as it was difficult to fit all in, according to the Russian embassy in Kabul. As the Taliban fighters closed in on Kabul on Sunday, Mr. Ghani left Afghanistan for an unknown destination. He wrote on Facebook later that he decided to leave the country to avoid bloodshed. The 72-year-old academic and politician was backed by the US-led coalition forces since he took power in 2014. But the US and NATO forces withdrew from Afghanistan in recent weeks after 20 years of fighting the Taliban, leaving Mr. Ghani's government trembling in the face of the Taliban's swift military gains. The pace of the Taliban onslaught surprised the Afghan government, Western elites, and major powers in the region, leading to the group entering Kabul virtually unopposed. On Monday, the RIA news agency quoted Nikita Ishchenko, a spokesman for the Russian embassy in Kabul, as saying, "As for the collapse of the outgoing regime, it is most eloquently characterized by the way Ghani fled Afghanistan. 4 cars were full of money. They tried to stuff another part of the money into a helicopter, but not all of it fit, and some of the money was left lying on the tarmac," he added. Later, Mr. Ishchenko confirmed his comments to Reuters news agency, citing witnesses. The Independent could not independently verify his account immediately, but in what seems to be a collective Russian government effort, President Vladimir Putin's special representative on Afghanistan, Zamir Kabulov, alluded to the possibility that failing government officials may have embezzled a large amount of money. That's coming from the president of Russia. He said earlier it was unclear how much money the government officials would leave behind. "I hope the government that has fled did not take all the money from the state budget. It will be the bedrock of the budget if something is left," Kabulov told Moscow's Echo Moskvy radio station. Expert also says that Moscow didn't see Mr. Ghani's government as autonomous and was concerned over the massive influence the US has enjoyed over Kabul due to its military presence in Afghanistan. This was partly the reason for Russia's policy of striking a balance in its relations with the government, the Taliban, and other groups to retain its influence in case of the government's collapse. However, it is officially classifies the Taliban as a terrorist organization. Last month, at the peak of the Taliban rampage, Russia offered to broker a peace deal between the militant group and the government to establish Afghanistan as a peaceful, independent, and neutral state. But after Kabul has fallen to the Taliban, Russia has said it would retain a diplomatic presence in Kabul and hopes to develop ties with the group. But it also confirmed that it is in no rush to recognize them as the country's ruler and will closely observe their behavior. This is so absurd, and it's so very, very unconducive for the president, to still stay behind in the country and leave himself to the hands of the Taliban. That is why I believe he needed to, elope to an exile. That's why he needed to rush down to an exile, because he won't be comfortable, staying behind in his country where terrorists, have taken over. The report says he flee with 4 cars and a whole lot of money with a private jet and an helicopter. Well, the 72-year-old academic and politician was backed with the US-led coalition forces since he took power in 2014, and the Taliban, has been disturbing the peace of Afghanistan. And report has it that the Taliban, Al Qaeda, they are terrorist group, they are jihadists, trying to Islamize, or rather, have an ulterior agenda and motive towards the world. And there were reports that the Taliban and the Al Qaeda, they are also, they have also, emanate, their what I would call is like, having branches all over. They have disseminated, so many groups in the African region, especially in the West African region. And come to think of it, Boko Haram is one of the example. The ISWAP is one of their example, just to Islamize the country. For you to know the feelings and the heat that the jihadists, the Taliban, would have been, given the Afghanistan, you use the Boko Haram as an example. The Boko Haram has been, disturbing the peace of the country, especially in the northern part of the country, which is Nigeria, and they, fought over what's it called, supremacy with the Boko Haram and ISWAP, which is the Islamic State of West African province, before Shekau blew himself and committed suicide. For you to know that this terror group or terrorist group are very efficient in disseminating their or unleashing their terror on Nigerians, just because of their agenda to Fulanize or to Islamize the country. Well, as it is, Afghanistan, has been taken over by this so-called Taliban and their terrorist group. That's why the 72-year-old president Ghani, flee to an unknown destination, just because he knew quite alright that there will be blood shed if definitely he allows himself to still be in that country, and Afghanistan and the Taliban rather would, submerge into his government, and there will be bloodshed. As it is, as he has run away, I believe there won't be bloodshed. But in other words, he has run on rampage, he's on exile. According to what has been said, that as the Taliban fighters closed in on Kabul on Sunday, Mr. Ghani left Afghanistan for an unknown destination. He wrote on Facebook later that he decided to leave the country to avoid bloodshed. Well, it's so very, very, disturbing that a sitting president could run away from terrorists. Well, what are your thoughts? What are your questions that you may want to pull out? And what are the similarities between Afghanistan and the present administration of Nigeria, which is the president Buhari? What's the correlation? I want you to table that on the comment section. Thanks for listening, and God bless you.